Hi everyone, Caoimhin here from MTU's Blackrock Castle Observatory. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the constellations that we can see high to the south over the coming days. And these constellations are very close to the planet Mars, which we took a look at last week, and the constellations of Andromeda and Perseus, which we mentioned the week before. We're going to refer to those again to help us find the area of the sky we want to look at for this evening. So we're just coming up to 6:45 now on Friday the 26th. We're already starting to see plenty of bright objects in the sky, including the red planet Mars. If you would like to refer back to some of our earlier videos, then you can check out our YouTube channel. And as we move forward, we'll continue to refer back to previous videos such as this one. So to make sure you don't miss out, hit the red subscribe button and the little blue bell icon to make sure you receive up-to-date notifications. We can already see Mars quite clearly in the sky. It is a little bit more difficult if the planets aren't labelled as such, but Mars does have that distinctive red colour which really helps. We're going to allow the sun set a little bit more, coming up to about 7:15, and Mars is that red dot nice and high, almost towards the southwest. Of course, we're going to turn all the way around to the west just to make sure that we are looking at the right area. We're going to follow the same steps as we have in previous videos, starting with this nice square of Pegasus, which is now quite low to the west as the sun sets, coming up through Pegasus into the area of Andromeda and past Andromeda to this lovely shark fin shape of Perseus. Just at the end of this constellation, Perseus, we get into the constellation of Taurus. Taurus is famous for this little group of stars, the Seven Sisters, just underneath which is where we're going to see Mars over the next couple of days. Taurus is called Taurus because it is a bull, Taurus the bull, and this V shape here at the front, a group of stars known as the Hyades, that contains the eye of the bull, Aldebaran, this lovely red star. So as well as the red Mars, we will have this red star in the sky. So to make sure you can tell the difference, just remember that stars will twinkle, whereas planets not so much. They're a bit more still and steady in our sky. So Taurus is a particularly famous constellation because of the area of the sky that it's in, an area known as the ecliptic. So we have a special marking for the ecliptic line. I'll bring it up here. There we go. Lovely. So there is our ecliptic, and it goes straight through this constellation of Taurus. You can see it's very close to Mars, very close to the moon. We call the ecliptic because it's where we see eclipses. The moon will either pass into our shadow for a lunar eclipse or block out the sun for a solar eclipse somewhere along this line. And the ecliptic has some very famous constellations, including Taurus. Just on one side of Taurus, we've got the constellation of Aries. Over on the other side, we've got the constellation of Gemini. And if we bring up our constellation art, and you'll see there's Taurus on the line, Aries, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. These constellations are all along the ecliptic. You may recognize their names. They're sometimes referred to as the zodiacal constellations or the zodiac. We won't look at all of them in this video. We'll focus on the ones that are nice and high and easy for us to see. But we will come back to talking about the ecliptic in future videos because it's very useful for finding some famous constellations. So we're going to start by zooming in a little bit towards Mars, and as we take a closer look, you'll start to see more and more of the Seven Sisters, which are just above Mars at the moment. In a dark sky free from light pollution, you can see seven sisters in the sky depending on your eyesight. In a city like Cork with more light pollution, you're more likely to see 4 or 5. As we take a closer look, that number grows and grows into the hundreds. There are quite a lot of stars in this open cluster. We can see the red shape of Mars just underneath them, and over here is Aldebaran with the V-shaped group of stars known as the Hyades. These are an open cluster of stars, very similar to the Pleiades, but as you can see they're a little bit more spread out, and we don't see the same fuzziness or nebulosity around the Hyades as we do here with the Pleiades. You can see that kind of fuzzy blue aura or glow. So Taurus is a very famous constellation. That big red star Aldebaran in particular is interesting, a really big red giant. Now if we turn our sky around to line ourselves back up with the ground, Taurus is there on the ecliptic, and seeing as we're nice and high in the south, the ecliptic is pretty much at its peak here. So we're going to see just across from Taurus the next constellation in this group. So this is Gemini. Gemini in particular is a recognizable group of stars. If I bring up the lines of the constellation, well, Taurus over here doesn't look much like a bull, whereas Gemini, the twins, it kind of looks like two stick figures holding hands. And indeed, this is meant to be two individuals, two people, Pollux and Castor. Pollux and Castor are also the names of the two brightest stars in this constellation. So if we start to take a closer look, there is Pollux, nice and bright, and there is Castor, quite bright as well. In this area of the sky, we are getting closer to looking towards the glow of the Milky Way. So we're going to see more fuzzy shapes, and in previous videos, we've even taken a look at some of the clusters of stars that are visible in the area of Gemini. So Gemini may be a more rewarding area of the sky to look if you're using a telescope, and if you're in a dark sky, where these faint things like clusters of stars and nebulae get a little bit easier to see. So we can see here, looking at Gemini in close-up in a dark sky, it's absolutely full of stars. Those fuzzy nebulous shapes become a lot more visible and easy to see. And if we bring up some hints as to where some other deep sky objects could lie, we can see that there's a few of these deep sky objects around the area of Gemini, and quite a few here around the top of Orion as well. As we turn back towards Taurus, we can see there are a couple here around Aldebaran, but we're seeing a bit less as we get out towards the Pleiades. Still some nebulosity visible up here, but particularly in the countryside, it's a lot easier to see where the glow of our Milky Way starts to fade. And we can see that with all the extra stars here around the top of Orion and the end of Gemini, whereas it's a little bit of a darker sky with less of that glow as we look over towards Aldebaran and the Seven Sisters. Now that we've moved out into the countryside, there's still a reasonable bit of light creeping over the horizon. It's not fighting with the glow from the city anymore. So we will go just a little bit darker. The light of the moon is going to be quite bright this evening, but it will become less of an issue as we move through the weekend. So we can see here the glow of the Milky Way becomes much, much brighter, and it's much more obvious that it is really here between the end of Gemini and the top of Orion. Not so much of the glow is visible as we come over to Aldebaran and Taurus. Now, if we bring the sun back just a little bit without allowing too much light over the horizon, you may notice there is a faint glow here, stretching above the horizon, even though the sun has set. It's a little bit brighter up here. And that's because there's more stuff for the light of the sun to reflect off. Looking into this path of the ecliptic, where we see Mars and the moon, it's also where the asteroid belt lies, and where a lot of the dust and rocks and other material orbiting our sun will rest. So along the path of the ecliptic, or the zodiac, we often see a glow that we call the zodiacal glow or zodiacal light. And it is light of the sun reflecting off those little bits of dust and rock that orbit around it. So we see it along the same path where the planets orbit and the moon orbits as well. But again, this is mainly visible in darker areas of the countryside. Even when the sun has truly set here in the city, there's just a bit too much extra light for us to clearly see it. But we should still be able to find constellations like Taurus just next to Mars, and Gemini just a little bit above Orion and across from Taurus here. So I hope you get a chance to see them, and I hope you'll join me again next week to take a deeper look at the objects along the ecliptic.